We provide cybersecurity integration and consultation services to our customers across UAE and KSA. With the digital transformation adaptation by major global organizations, it has resulted in enormous data in such a way that it minimizes the risk of attack, it minimizes the risk of data leakage, it minimizes the risk of data getting tampered. In Raqmiyat, we assist our customers to follow the framework, to achieve the compliance, to achieve the mandate, ensuring that the data security is done in a well way.
Sure. Alex, maybe you could tell us a bit about, obviously, your role, Prototype's role as an advisor on digital transformation, but maybe some of the hottest topics you're seeing around data and security and some of the biggest issues that your clients face in that respect.
Right. I think for us, there are two things. One of them is like security from like a technology perspective, right? So like making things actually secure, which is one side. And then the other thing is like the whole like data and privacy problems that we, discussed also like in the case of like Freedom Pizza, like how they're dealing with data. And I think these are the main challenges that businesses have right now, right? So like, how do I make my data secure? And then how do I actually deal with the data that I have? And how do I like bring back this ownership to like my customers? And now we know with like GDPR and like all the issues that came with this, which was like a big topic around this. So in terms of like securing data, the approach that we take, it's kind of like reducing the risk, right? Because you can't really like rely on anyone to like, be careful about your data. And it's not so much about the systems itself, right? Because like systems you can easily like replace or reboot or reinstall, right? It's about the actual data. So like moving the data on the side and like literally like only using the data that you really need and exposing this data and like securing the back of it is like one way to go about it. And there's a lot of new technologies that we have right now that actually enables us to do this.
Sure. Abhijit, do you believe that as businesses grow, their exposure to risk inevitably has to increase? And what can be done to sort of combat that risk?
A very good question. I'll say this, like today we have different security frameworks that has been advised for organization to comply with the requirement. And if we take a closer look to these particular frameworks, the organizations, there are 4 common goals which come and which are mandatory common goals. Now, first is organization needs to understand the data at rest. Now, the data at rest, whether the data is on-prem or is in the cloud, it needs to be protected by a cryptographic protection. So this ensures that the data at rest is secured. Second, the data in transit. The data in transit is more vulnerable as compared to the data at rest. Remote workers to their, everybody for that matter, and like, everybody of these entities need to access the data in the organization. Now, the identity of that entity and the access of that entity, if it is controlled well, the fourth and the very important compliance goal can be achieved through it. So we assist our customers in the journey, to identify the gaps is important, but identifying gaps will just tell what is lagging in between. But what is more important is how we achieve this 189 dream controls that has been suggested by the regulatory authorities in a particular way. So identifying the gaps of and giving a roadmap to the customer of priority 1, priority 2, priority 3 and priority 4 controls will really help customer build a strong framework ensuring that the data is secured and the regulatory compliance is achieved.
So I have a question actually, right? Yeah. So like a lot of businesses right now, as you mentioned, like the keys, it's like encryption keys.
Yeah, a software-based model to manage the keys. So yes, managing keys, what sort of key management I need to do, what solutions I need to manage is very, very important when I select a particular solution.
Let's move the conversation back to sort of awareness around cybersecurity and data. Cybersecurity as seriously as they should.
With it to protect the data, and I think there are potentially like a lot of flaws in the system right now.
Sure, Abhijit, what are your thoughts in terms of again the SME community in this country? Do you, or from what you've observed in dealing with SME clients, Do you think they're necessarily equipped to deal with cybersecurity challenges, so-called innovation? But do you believe that cybersecurity is one aspect that should sit with a trusted partner rather than sort of be relied on purely on internal resources?
I mean, I think it goes back to the SME example, right? So like we got, if you look at an SME and they're like actually giving their whole infrastructure away, I would almost sometimes feel more secure about that by instead of like looking at some of the corporate organizations that I know, because there, you know, you have like 2 servers and 2 guys in a room, right? And I don't necessarily see that as secure as like, you know, having like a big platform that like has proper measures in place. Now, I think the right solution is to do both things, because you can't audit yourself, right? So there should be someone else who's the auditor, but then there should be internal capabilities to making sure that the day-to-day management of security is actually, you know, in place and taken care of.
Sure. Thoughts?
See, in 2016, 2017, we have seen SMEs, we have seen large organizations facing the cybersecurity attacks, having data breaches, having many challenges with the security, in spite of having tools in place. So having a right tool in place is definitely important, but having a proper roadmap and a proper framework of security is very, very important. Today, for a customer to stand up and say that they are cybersecurity resilient. Now, cybersecurity resilient is not a destination where an organization can reach there and can declare to be secured. No, it's a continuous process of improvement where they need the right set of consultation, the right people to guide them through the journey and to adapt to the new tools as per the regulatory compliance to achieve the security framework. If this is done right, and like, you know, security cannot be an afterthought thing of adapting any change. For example, any organization today is moving from on-prem, the email from on-prem to cloud. So they cannot think of a security after all the transformation has taken into place. No. It has to be thought of at the building blocks level, where the security is at the initial level, like, you know, at each layer of the transformation, the security is thought of and is tightly integrated with the change that they are adapting. This will ensure that whatever digital disruption they are trying to adapt is secured, not is that afterthought, but it's at the beginning when the process of the change starts.
Sure. What do you believe, maybe not in terms of specific technological threats, but what do they need to do to ensure that they don't sort of breach protocol there?
Right, I mean, there are a couple of like international brands that we have here, and they all had to set up their GDPR compliance officer and so forth. And they had to actively deal with this, not only with like actually the reason to like tackle the potential requests that would come from Europe, but even like, you know, dealing with internal resources, because it's not just like about your customers, it's also about staff, right? And if you're an organization with like, you know, thousands of staff, then there are potentially European citizens in there, and you have to deal with all this. So some companies had a little bit of like a challenge around this to like quickly deal with it. Now, the majority of the companies here, which are not necessarily dealing with those kind of like citizens or customers, they're not necessarily in a state where they have to like worry about it so much. But in reality, everyone should be worrying about it, because by the end of the day, like a lot of customers are worried about it, and that goes back to the whole experience, like what do customers actually expect from an organization, which is like to deal with their data in a secure manner, right? And everyone should have the right to know where their data goes, you know. And I like the example this morning with like, you know, like third-party delivery systems. Like, you don't know where your data goes, right? It's been resold to like other potential restaurants and whatever. So I think this is important, and I think it's just it's a shift of mindset that companies need to get into, to like understanding that there is going to be more and more consequences that come around this, and that they need to be prepared to tackle.
Do you think the cliche of it's an often cited cliche of data being the new oil, is that grossly exaggerated? Is it a marketing slogan? And would you say that organizations that embrace that kind of responsible attitude to data and also seek to manage their data effectively to get a better understanding of their business, will they really succeed? And is that cliche, is it over exaggerated?
I mean, I think data is oil, but I think data has been always oil, and it's always been there, right? So like the reason why it's oil now, because like it helps to like make it more important and sell more software on top of it, right? And like the question goes back, and we just actually had a discussion around this in the break. You have the data, but like what do you actually do with it, you know? And how many businesses actually know what to do with their data? And now I know like huge organizations, they have huge amount of data and they know nothing about it, they don't use it, and they can't even get like an email automation done, right? And it goes back to actually having the capabilities and the understanding and the resources to deal with this data, to turn it into oil, right? So it's kind of like right now it's that oil that's like somewhere buried, but we need to go down and like drill it and get it out. As we do, right? That's what we do here.